gas, no brake.
And now we have liftoff. Welcome into the Now We Have Liftoff, New York Jets podcast. I am your host, Frank Jam Piccolo, and tonight I will be flying solo. Well, it was a tough one, Jets fans. This past weekend, they lost to the Bills. Tonight I will be talking about the debacle, which was the 45-17 thrashing that the Bills gave to the Jets. I will also be talking about Mike White's performance, Michaelcarter, the defense as a whole. I'll talk a little bit about the rebuild and why it kind of is looking so bad. These games are looking so bad. And then I will talk about the upcoming game against Miami, which will be at home. And then I will give you my lock of the week. So let's get into it. So the Jets lost 45-17 against the Buffalo Bills at home, and right from the gate, it looked bad. Like every facet of the game, offense, defense, special teams, it was just a putrid performance by our Jets. Coaching, terrible. Michael LaFleur seemed like he took a little bit of a step back. But let's dive into the most important position on a football team, and that's the quarterback. Mike White came crashing back down to earth. He was 24 for 44, 251 yards, 4 interceptions, and for me, what I think is telling was that his average yard per attempt was 5.7 according to PFF. That is just not good enough. And that is what I've been worried about with Mike White, is that he doesn't push the ball down the field. And when he did, you kind of saw it in the second half that it just isn't pretty. Like he's indecisive when he's throwing the ball down the field. He doesn't seem like he's throwing guys open. Like he seems like he's just hitting to where they are, and like that one deep ball to Elijahmoore, I don't know how he didn't see Tre'Davious White there. Like that's a problem. And to me, that's why he is a backup quarterback, because he'll be solid in spot starts. You know, we saw that against Cincinnati. He was absolutely outstanding, but I think that was more of the defense that Cincinnati was running. Like they left all those underneath stuff open. They left the dump offs, the screens, and you saw a Buffalo defense that put pressure on Mike White and wasn't going to let the screens and the checkdowns beat them or really hurt them. And it was crazy, because as I'm watching this game, I'm thinking Zachwilson can't get healthy fast enough, because as bad as Zach has looked this year, I think the time off, watching Mike White, watching Josh Johnson against Indy, I'm hoping that he could realize that he could get those dump off passes. And he said it leading up to the game that, you know, I got to play more like Mike White. Take what the defense is giving you, and then when the time is right, take those shots. And I think that's important, right? That he got to sit down, take a step back. Maybe he wasn't ready to start the year off as the starting quarterback. You know, he kind of intimated that he should be a college senior this year. Instead, he chose to come out in the draft. But when we look at the totality, like this is going to be a rebuilding year anyways. So I'd rather take my lumps with the second overall pick than with a late round draft pick that, let's be honest, isn't going to get us to the promised land where we want to go. So that being said, let's continue breaking down the game. Michael Carter had a decent game, 16 rush attempts for 39 yards. Nothing to write home about. But he did have 4 catches for 43 yards. He had a decent game with, all things considered. The offensive line played terrible. Fant probably had his worst game of the season. Had a holding call early, which really hurt the Jets on their second drive of the game. Morgan Moses, I haven't really gotten into that all too much because I thought he's played okay, but the Jets have a problem at right tackle because he's getting blown by repeatedly. And if this isn't fixed in next offseason, that could be a problem, especially when you have deficiencies at center and right guard, McGovern and vanroten, respectively. I thought McGovern played like McGovern usually plays. Like, there wasn't anything out of the ordinary from him. Like, he didn't have any really egregious mistakes, just his typical having trouble blocking the 0 tech and the 1 tech. But I thought vanroten played a very putrid game. He was getting blown back repeatedly, pressure on Mike White repeatedly from vanroten's guy. But we did have a bright spot. Veratucker, in my opinion, is going to be a perennial Pro Bowl player. Like, you could see it. Like, he'll probably not a Pro Bowl player this year, but going forward, I think he's a player that we could start to build around. With that being said, I would like to see Mekhi Becton at least start practicing. Like, I don't know if I would have him play, but I want to see him start practicing. I'm really concerned with a man that size, with the amount of injuries that he's had. You see it in basketball all the time with these big centers that are tall in stature and their bodies just get broken down. This is 2 straight years where he's been out for an extended period of time. Salah said it'd probably be 1 to 3 weeks before he even starts practicing again. I don't know. Like, I'm not ready to write the kid off, but it's a problem that he can't stay on the field. Like I said, the offense was just terrible. LaFleur didn't call a good game. I know everybody was making a big deal about him being back up in the booth and how, he could see the field better. Well, it didn't really look it. I know we're going against the best defense in the league, according to some stat companies that have their projections. I know PFF has Buffalo's number 1 rated total defense, and you could see why. They fly to the ball. They got really good linebackers, and their D-backs are crazy. Like, Tre'Davious White is out of this world. But let's get into the defense, because Robertsalah came over here as a defensive savant, and the last 3-4 weeks, probably the last 4 weeks, because we're going to include the New England game, the Cincinnati game, the Indy game, and now Buffalo. They can't do anything. John said it last week. They don't defend the run well. They don't defend the pass well. They make dumb penalties all the time. And the injuries, again, with this defense are just racking up. Brandonechols has just went on to the short-term IR. He's got some type of quad. I'm not too sure what it was, but he's on IR. So that's another defensive player that the Jets are going to lose for an extended period of time. So Josh Allen passed for 366 yards and 2 TDs. And most of that passing went to Stephon Diggs, who had 8 catches for 162 yards. Me and John talked about it, about why Buffalo was struggling, is that the teams that they're playing against primarily are playing that cover 2 defense, which in that cover 2, normally if you play it right, stops that big explosive play down the field, because you got 2 safeties over the top. In theory, they're supposed to provide help for the cornerbacks, over the top help for the cornerbacks. The Jets, for whatever reason, decided they were going to play 1 safety deep, and that safety was Ashtyn Davis, and Ashtyn did have a decent game. He had 5 tackles, whatever. Like, it was whatever. For the life of me, I do not know why they left Javelin Guidry on an island with one of the best receivers in the league. I don't get it. I don't get it. They didn't jam him. They just let him run straight down the field. And no matter what the Jets did, from jump to the final gun, they couldn't do anything, and they got embarrassed. Now, I'm really trying not to lampoon on this coaching staff, because I know it's a new coaching staff. I know it's the first year of the system, and Salah said as much, that he's not going to take over the play calling from Ulbrich. But something's got to be done. And I know they said at the beginning of the year there's going to be no special elixirs. They're not going to come up with these great play calls. But as a coach, your number one job is to put your team in the best position to win. And by playing a single high safety against the Buffalo Bills, you're not doing that. You're just not. You cannot leave these guys on an island against Stephon Diggs. And furthermore, if you are going to do that, how about we put our best cornerback on him, and that is Brycehall. You cannot leave Guidry by himself all game. Well, not all game, but most of the reps. Buffalo knew that the Jets weren't going to swap sides with Hall, make him wherever Diggs went, Hall was going to go. And he just feasted. All game, he just feasted. And I for the life of, I just don't get it. And on top of that, the Jets couldn't get any rush on Allen. Couldn't make him get off his spot. It seemed like he had all day to pass. The run defense was a little better, but I think the only reason that it seemed that they're a little better was because Buffalo doesn't really run the ball. And when they do run the ball, that it's normally with Josh Allen. But they didn't need to run the ball because Josh Allen was having a field day with his passing lanes. It was just atrocious. Now to piggyback on that is, I get that the Jets are devoid of talent, especially when you talk about the injuries. They lost Lawson in training camp. May went down last week. He's out for the year. Hamsa's still hurt. Jared Davis only got back a couple weeks ago. Mosley's been out. Pinnock is hurt. Eccles got hurt in this game. We lost, I think, 2 safeties, 3 safeties, something like that. I get it. I do. And I get that they're trying to change the culture. But we can't keep banging our heads against the wall and expecting us not to have a headache. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Okay, now that I said that, I want to talk about the rebuild, because that's what this is. This was nothing that we've ever seen before. This was a complete teardown. We tore down all the walls. We tore down all the studs. We went right to the foundation. Joe Douglas did and Salah did, and we're going to start anew. So when you think about it, I don't know how many of these guys are 4-3 defensive players. Probably Lawson, Rankins, and all the rookies that they drafted. That's probably about it. And I think Quinnen's able to do that, but that's not why he was drafted. He was drafted to be that 3-4 defensive tackle. One of McCagnon's picks. So when we get frustrated and when we start talking about how Joe Douglas is terrible and how last year's draft class, 2020's draft class, was not good. You talk about Becton, you talk about Davis, you talk about Mims, you talk about these guys and how they're not productive. Mims can't get on the field. He didn't play last week because he had COVID. And yeah, I get it. That draft class is not looking so great. But when you talk about this year's, it's promising. Elijahmoore is playing well. Michaelcarter looks like he's going to be a great running back for us. Jury's still out on Zachwilson, and I think that's where Joe Douglas is going to either get a lot of credit or he's going to be fired, is on that pick. Because normally you don't get 2 shots at picking a quarterback. But this was a team effort. They all decided that they wanted a complete teardown. They all did. And we haven't done that. Like, it's always been like halved, right? Like, it's always been, we're going to bring in all these veteran players like the Jets did when Rex took over, right? And you had a bunch of Mangini's players, and then the following year they brought in Santonio Holmes and signed Darrelle Revis to a monster deal. And you had Thomas Jones, LaDainian Tomlinson, and then Todd Bowles, the same thing. They traded for Brandon Marshall. They had Eric Decker. They brought in all these older veteran type of players. Well, we don't have that. Everyone's brand new. They're going to learn together. They're going to make mistakes together. And you hear Salah talk about the roller coaster ride. Well, we're in that valley right now, and I'm hoping in this next stretch of games where they got 2 against Miami, they have the Texans, they have the Saints, they have the Eagles. So hopefully, we can see what this team has going forward. Like, we knew that we aren't on the same level as the Buffalo Bills, but the 2 wins that the Jets do have, we beat solid football teams. Cincinnati Bengals are a good football team. The Tennessee Titans with Derrick Henry was probably the best team in the AFC. So those are good wins, and we can't forget about that. Well, with that being said, let's get into the Miami game. As always, this podcast is brought to you by the Pigskin Podcast Network and DraftKings. Hey, football fans, who's ready to score some free bets? Now you can. When you bet on any NFL game this week, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, new customers who bet just $1 on either team to win, either team to score can win $100 in free bets. When a team scores, you score. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, DraftKings won't leave you empty-handed. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes all season long with DraftKings daily fantasy sports contests. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code TPPN. Bet $1 on either team to score and win $100 in free bets. If they score, you score with promo code TPPN this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 years or older. New Jersey, Indiana, Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit. $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. So now that that's out of the way, let's break into this game. Miami, not a good team. The Jets, not a good team. Zach Wilson, don't know if he's playing. I hope he's playing because I think whoever's playing has a very good shot at doing well, and I don't want to hear from the talking heads about how Mike White needs another opportunity if he starts this week and he plays well. Zach Wilson's the future. Time to see what we got in him. I want to see if he learned anything from sitting out. I want to see how the rest of the team responds to Zach Wilson coming in. But the most important part of this team that I want to see improve is that defense. Miami doesn't really run the ball. Tua's a young quarterback who's prone to make poor decisions at times. The line on this game is we are +3. I've been going back and forth in my mind on this. Because the Jets have been playing very bad. They just got embarrassed. And Miami's not a good football team. I'm going to take the Jets at +3. I think Zach Wilson's going to play again, or I think he's going to start this week. I think the Jets are going to get a boost from that. I think the defense is going to play angry because they got embarrassed. I think Salah's been taking a lot of heat, a lot of it deserved, and I think the team is going to use that as a rallying cry, and I think the Jets are going to win. The Jets are going to win. The Jets are going to cover, and I think Zach Wilson is going to throw for 225, 250, pair of touchdowns, and I think Michael Carter is going to have a big game. I think this is like Michael Carter's breakout. I know he had a breakout game against Cincinnati. This is going to be the NFL is going to take notice. I think after this game. I hope. Who knows? It's the Jets. My lock of the week. I am going to take the Packers, who are giving 2.5 points to Minnesota at Minnesota. I just don't trust that Minnesota defense. Aaron Rodgers is going to be Aaron Rodgers. And I think the Packers, are going to win that game handedly. And That's all I got. I just want to say, guys, keep the faith. Have patience. We knew what this was going to be. The Jets were 4, 5, 6 wins at the most. I know it's tough, but just remember this is year 1 of a rebuild. And take solace in that Seattle lost again. So that pick should be higher than most of us expected. And I appreciate you guys for listening and watching. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button on YouTube. And as always, you could catch us on Spotify, Apple, Google Play, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a comment, like us. We appreciate it. And hoping to have John back next week so we could talk about the Dolphins and preview the next week's game. Love you. Appreciate you. Peace.